Chapter 16, Utgard's Decree. Members of the Mountain Bull clan. We, the Council of Nobles from Utgard, have heard of your plea. You have been falsely accused of disloyalty by the Verdant Serpent clan and chased from your homes. You have our condolences. But now that we, the Council of Nobles from Utgard, have heard of this great injustice done to you, we have decided to take actions to right the wrongs done to you. Your village shall be named the frontier town of the Mountain Bull. We, the Council of Nobles from Utgard, shall send aid in your conquest of the wilderness and expansion of your new town. This help will be in the form of workforces, tools, equipment, and counseling. Furthermore, we, the Council of Nobles from Utgard, shall question the Verdant Serpent clan. The injustice done to you shall not go unpunished. You have remained in exile for far too long. As the king's proxy, we welcome you back to the Sky Kingdom. Lies. All lies. That's what this decree was made up of. As if any noble that had the power to be the king's proxy would care about a clan of less than 1,000 members. This was solely for the benefits this village held. Workforce? A convenient way to force us to accept more people. Tools? They wouldn't give them to us for free. Counseling? Just another word for giving orders. And this frontier town thing. They just wanted to make us part of the kingdom again so they could get a hold of this village legally. I wasn't mentioned in the decree, but as a town in the Sky Kingdom, we would have to pay taxes. The messenger had been invited to a feast by the joyous villagers. The only one who remained now was Nerita. Are you all right? What do you mean? You're giving of this scary vibe. It feels like you want to kill someone. I was a little startled. I had indeed begun to leak a minuscule amount of killing intent. Not enough to be noticed by the villagers and the messenger, but sufficient to be sensed by Nerita. Sorry. It's just that I don't have a lot of appreciation for these political games. They say such sweet and immaculate words, but behind these words hides insatiable greed. I just have a hard time listening to such pretentious words. Don't be sorry. I'm the one who should apologize. We dragged you into this, and now they'll try to control you too. So you realized the meaning of the decree. I'm not as silly as the others. They are charmed by the idea of justice and having their own town. I know they just want to gain control of us and our knowledge of the landscape. You forgot about the taxes. Nerita stormed off. The messenger, as expected, didn't leave right away, but immediately wanted to collect taxes. 20% of the whole harvest. Collected every month. And as expected, my iron ingots were included in their definition of harvest. Greedy bastards. It was a good thing that I had pretended that I'd need about a month's time to regrow my 50 iron ingots. Finally, the messenger left and the townspeople began building various structures under my guidance. I had them build 2 warehouses, a town hall, 4 inns and dozens of houses. In my spare time, I engraved another rune in my trunk. The voice-projecting rune. I was tired of being constrained to a little space where I could talk to others. A peaceful month passed and Aldi returned. Along with the messenger. And 100 workers. They were welcomed by Nerita and received their houses. The messenger and Aldi settled down in the only inn that was running at the moment. In the evening after dinner, all the workers wanted to go to their houses and rest. They were, however, harshly reprimanded by Nerita. It was time for the evening prayer. A tradition that had been kept up since the clan's first day here. Prayer why we were promised better lives here. Prayers weren't mentioned. The workers were unwilling. They didn't come here to pray. They had all been poor farmers who had taken this offer to clear their debt. Who would they pray to? Lord Eldar is the guardian deity of this town, and as its inhabitants you are required to pray to him. Only with his protection can this town even exist. Only through his presence will the beast keep away. I did that. Chapter 17, Bloodlust, Passive. I'd actually never thought about it. Since the Tempest wolf pack had attacked the village, I had never seen a living beast again. Occasionally animals, but nothing that could bring any harm. System, is it true that I'm the reason there are no beasts in the vicinity? Affirmative. Since the acquisition of skill, Bloodlust, host has been emitting a passive pressure. Beast will recognize this pressure as another beast's territory and not cross the border. You said border. Can I control the extent of that border? And how precise can I be? Host can freely control the border within its effective range. Imparting control method now. Meanwhile, Narita and the workers were still locked in an argument. And since I was the main reason for this discussion, I decided to intervene before Narita could slap anyone to death. Activating the voice projecting rune, my voice boomed, halting their argument. Enough. Narita, stand down, let me handle it. As for you all, I won't force anyone to pray to me. System urgently requests host to overthink this decision. Just trust me. I wasn't done speaking yet. The workers had already begun to smile at each other. If Lord Eldar himself said he wouldn't force them, there was no way Narita could. However, know that if you refuse the prayer, I will not extend my protection to you. You will also not be permitted to approach me. Who cares about your protection anyway? They began to return to their houses. Aldi and the messenger wanted to return to the inn too, but I called them back. I believe you should witness the prayer. Then you can inform the next group of workers in advance. Once they were all gathered around me, my devious little plan began. Using the method the system had imparted me with, I retracted the borders of my bloodlust. The only area that remained protected was my immediate vicinity. The reaction was quite astounding. Not even 5 minutes passed and the first beasts arrived. Another pack of Tempest wolves. 5 of them, running in tight formation, straight at some of the workers who remained outside. The workers only realized the danger when 2 of them started screaming from being bitten, probably to death. The others quickly noticed the wolves and wanted to flee. But they soon heard beasts' roars from every direction. The only place that seemed safe, serene even, was where Narita and the others were kneeling before me. And, shameless as they were, the workers charged straight over to us. Now I had clearly stated that they weren't allowed to approach me. Thus I saw little need for a warning. Leaf blades rushed through the evening air, blood gushed from open wounds, and corpses hit the floor. The ones further away reeled back with indignation. Safety had been so close, yet the damnable tree stopped them. Boo-hoo, life's unfair, isn't it? South close yet so far, a choice between death by 1,000 cuts or a beast, ma. Why do you block our way? We are people of this town too. You can't let us die here. What does you being part of this town have to do with letting you approach me? This space is reserved for only my followers. I also have no connection with this town. I didn't agree to become its guardian deity. I will only protect those who pray to me. The workers were enraged, but what could they retort to this? They had been told that they wouldn't receive protection if they didn't follow along, and they had acknowledged that. Even if they didn't want to acknowledge it now, they still couldn't get close without dying. The messenger was in the safe area too. He wanted to say something to help the workers. He had already opened his mouth when the realization hit him. Fear distorted his face as he thought that he too could die here should he say something stupid. So he hastily shut his mouth, covering it with his hands, like the words might escape if he didn't keep them in with his hands. Meanwhile, the workers' situation became more precarious with every second. The beasts from the forest were getting closer and closer. Chapter 18, Forced Unity. It didn't take long for the first worker to break under the pressure. "I want to join the prayer, so please grant me your protection." In a life or death situation like this, praying to a tree was the safer option for him. After the first worker had said those words, the others all echoed him. "Very well, you all may come here and join the prayer." They bolted over as fast as they could. Reaching the others, they got on their knees and repeated after the others. Naturally, since they didn't truly mean what they said and only did this to preserve their lives, the faith stream coming from those 80 workers left much to be desired in both quantity and quality. But I couldn't force them to believe in me like most of the others did. Only time could make them into devout believers. Now that my temporary goal was reached, I expanded the borders of my bloodlust once again. All the beasts that had come here immediately retreated. They were even kind enough to drag the corpses with them, leaving little cleanup work to do. Both the messenger and Aldi soon left the town, and everything resumed its peaceful state. The workers had also learned from the previous incident. They were quite terrified by it and tried not to make any complications. A few more months passed like this, and the number of workers had increased to around 1,000. Another show of power wasn't necessary either, as all new workers had been informed about the requirements of living here. The one thing bothering me was the fact that the town was split into two parts. The inner part was more or less the old village. It contained people of both genders and all ages. The outer part, on the other hand, was made up of about 800 men. The problem now was that this town was dependent on new workforces from Utgard, since the workers would age and there was no second generation to follow up. I had asked the messenger why there were no women being sent here. The answer was that they simply couldn't find any willing ones. A lie. Some of the workers had told me that there was a good amount of females that had volunteered but were rejected. Honestly, I couldn't do much about this anyway, so I just ignored it. Sadly, the reality of things wasn't kind enough to let me enjoy this peace for long. The wealth I was generating would surely tempt greedy individuals to make their move. It didn't take long for the first noble to visit. A visit to give salutations to me, as he claimed. Strangely, he didn't exchange a single word with me during his stay here. Instead, he spent his days talking to various people, and one of them was Eric. I would be a lie to say I wasn't concerned. All the conversations had been held at the entrance of the clearing. They purposefully tried to conceal what they were talking about. At first, I tried to ignore it, for peace sake. I didn't wish for more deaths. Then the second and the third and the fourth noble came to visit me. The situation had repeated itself multiple times, and I couldn't take it anymore. I had been unwilling to do this, as I wished to give them some measure of privacy, but they had forced my hand. My roots that had stayed underground all this time slowly moved to the surface until the whole clearing was dotted with them. The surfaced roots all had a rune of listening imprinted in them. These runes were then connected to a rune of recording on my trunk. Privacy was now officially abolished. The next secret talk of those nobles would not be so secret anymore. If they dared come here again, that was. To my great chagrin, they really didn't. 3 months passed at an agonizing pace. I could listen in on every conversation held, but there wasn't anything useful. The 4th month had nearly passed, and I was really hoping a noble would be there this time around. Congratulations to the host. You can now have your first descendant. Chapter 19, First Descendant. What the heck do you mean? You can't just tell me I can have my first descendant. Give me some explanation. Commencing the requested explanation. Descendants are trees that receive the progenitor's chlorophyllic line. They will, similar to the host, develop a consciousness within 3 years. Descendants will have to follow the progenitor's path of evolution but will in return experience greater growth during their period of maturing. A descendant can be planted at every important stage of life. Please note that after planting, the descendant will be very weak and in need of protection. Do it, then plant my descendant right next to me. This cannot be done. Descendant will need a certain distance from the progenitor to be able to grow. Closest distance is at the edge of the outermost tree circle. Furthermore, planting a tree at this time is not suggested. The edge of the tree circle it is. Do it now. I was totally overwhelmed by the thought of having a descendant. In my previous life, I had never had a wife or a child. My only partner in life was my research. Getting a second chance at life, I wished to rectify this error. I wished to know the feeling of being a father so desperately that I threw all caution to the wind and did it. I had been warned. With a burst of life force, a light green, glowing orb left my body. It was nearly time for the evening prayer and the townspeople had already gathered. Before their eyes, this glowing orb traveled to the western edge of the outermost tree circle and transformed into a sapling in the ground. The prayers that night were slightly more intense than usual. The following day, a noble arrived. Same procedure as always. However, this time their secret talks would be known to me. It didn't take long for the noble and Eric to conveniently find themselves at the edge of town. I presume you are Eric? Indeed, my lord. Are you here for the same reason as the others? I have already heard what you have told them. Was there any recent development? There was. He seemed to expend great effort to create a sapling. It must be very precious to him. My lord, you could take advantage of that. I will see about that. You have done well. That didn't sound good. I'd have to make sure to. A sound echoed through my mind. It sounded cute. Was that you, system? Negative. Due to unforeseen facts identified as story progression, the descendant's consciousness has awakened prematurely. As its progenitor, the host is mentally connected to all descendants. So I now have a child talking in my head, what a pain. A very cute-sounding pain. The voice didn't respond, and I could vaguely feel that its owner had fallen asleep. I should keep my mind voice down, lest I wake it. I had been planning something before this. Hadn't I? Well, since I didn't remember, it couldn't have been all that important. I spent the rest of the day in a daze. A fuzzy feeling in my core engulfed my mind, and I felt truly happy. I hardly noticed the evening prayer, and the whole night seemed to pass in but a flash. I was awoken from my daze by none other than the noble. He came early in the morning, followed by Eric and his attendant. You there, tree? I have a name, you know. That is of no concern to me. I know that you can produce more iron. Should this be known to Utgard, you would be heavily punished. However, I am a generous man. Give me 500 iron ingots every month, and I will keep my silence on the matter. Are you done? Because I refuse. Thinking the matter was over, I fired a few leaf blades at Eric and tried to sink back into the comfortable feeling I had before being so rudely awakened. I still kept some attention on Eric, hoping to see him suffer a bit. But it didn't happen. the leaves were burnt to ash before they could reach him. I began to concentrate again. What had just happened? Huh? Did you really think you could harm someone in my presence with leaves? What a dumb tree you are. You can't follow orders and act violently. I will have to punish you. Chapter 20. Don't mess with nature. I fired another volley of leaves in answer. This time though I didn't use the rune to watch what happened. And there it was, a round object in the noble's pocket sent out a wave of fire that incinerated my leaves. Bragging, based on an artifact, are we? What do you know? Holding an artifact is a qualification too. Now I will show you what it means to defy me. I wasn't really scared of him. He might be able to burn my leaves, but my body was far too dense to be burned by such a weak flame. These thoughts suddenly turned into pure terror. He wasn't walking towards me. He was going for my descendant. Not now. I needed to stop him. I started to increase the barrage of leaf blades until they turned into a green current of death. This current of sharpness coursed straight at the noble and engaged the fire waves sent out by the artifact. Due to the nature of fire-burning leaves, the artifact held a massive advantage. Even with these immense quantities, I couldn't muster enough power to overload the artifact. Thus, I had to look as the noble slowly approached my sapling. Behind him, a charred pathway was left, proof of my fight with the scorching waves that defended him. My tiny descendants just stood there, rooted to the ground. The little sapling barely reached the noble's knees. Then the axe chopped down. It was swung by Eric. A gash appeared, nearly cutting my sapling in half. Despite the apparent futility of it, I increased the green current's strength once again. The axe was raised once again. That dreadful axe. In my mind, the descendant's voice had been reduced to a tiny whimper. And with a last wavering cry, the axe descended once again. A lifeless sapling hit the ground. I lost it. Bastards. I'll end you. Red mist began to spread through countless fractures from my body. Skill, bloodlust, active, has been triggered. The host's emotional state is very unstable. Title, Guardian of Nature, has been triggered. Assessing trial method. Trial method, lightning tribulation. Hidden power, nature's wrath, has been triggered. Commencing operation. Dark clouds covered the sky. The world was plunged into darkness. The only light, the red mist that was spreading furiously. The noble and his two accomplices froze up, engulfed by the tangible bloodlust. Winds picked up, gales, whirlwinds, gusts, and even small cyclones ravaged the forest. The wood of the town's houses creaked under the pressure and was hit by the first raindrops. Far away from Utgard a powerful presence approached, but by the time it got close, it was met by a spinning wall of water, reminding of a hurricane. Thunder roared in the sky, purple lightning flashes flickered and lightly illuminated the eye of the storm. The first lightning bolt struck the ground. It aimed for the petrified noble, but was barely blocked by a powerful burst of flames. A crack echoed the whole town. The artifact in the noble's pocket had collapsed under the lightning strike's power. His face twisted into a soundless cry of horror and despair as he saw the next lightning bolt. He was hit directly, and the lightning slowly scorched his body. Little arcs of lightning were left dancing over his corpse as it fell to the ground devoid of all life. Time seemed to stop for a few seconds. The strong presence outside of the storm turned and headed back. Eric took a step back. He was attempting to run, but he had underestimated the power of the storm my boundless wrath had summoned. The silence was broken by another lightning strike, followed by another and another. Thousands of lightning strikes fell and turned my surroundings into a charred hellscape. The only thing left standing completely unharmed were me and my trees. The town was also mostly fine. It had been spared by the lightning. There were only a few wrecked houses that had been met with a cyclone. You have gained an affinity strong with lightning. Why? 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 I couldn't even save a single sapling. That is your own fault. You have been warned multiple times and, had you not been holding back, you could have saved him.